Greetings today. Today is a special day. I'm going to be talking with brother Yohance, uh, and we're going to be talking about ancient masonry. So this is the topic tonight: is ancient masonry. I'm going to be having brother Yohance come on in just a few minutes. I'm gonna let him give his own spiel on it. I'm just going to be interviewing him tonight in regards to that, and see what he has to say. And this is what the show going to be tonight. Definitely want to send a big shout out to all the sisters of the Order of the Eastern Star and brothers of the craft, whatever your jurisdiction may be. I try to be as honest and upfront in regards to Freemasonry as I possibly can, without having my own biased opinion. But that can be hard sometimes because we all have this bias about ourselves. But with that being said, I want to welcome everybody onto the show tonight as you begin to come in. Tonight's show is going to be about ancient masonry, and this is Brother Yohance. He's a Prince Hall brother that was on the last show that was done. This brother spilled so much knowledge. People was asking when can he come back. We need to hear from him. So we have talked, and he's introduced me to some people. I appreciate what he's done, and we finna make some things happen. And I think once you hear what he has to say in regards to ancient masonry, it may have you look a little different, and sometimes we do need to hear another side of things. And this is going to be his spiel. This is what he's going to share with us. He's done an in-depth lecture on the ancient masonry and what it is, what it's not, how it's all connected in today's Freemasonry, what it used to be versus what it is today. This brother here is going to bring some knowledge. He's going to bring some intellect. He's going to just really bring a different perspective that's going to wake us up. For those of us who are asleep, he's going to wake us up a little bit and definitely enlighten us on some things that we have not yet given thought to in this thing we call Freemason, which is your own personal journey. And the next time that someone tells you that Freemasonry has no color, you need to look at them with the left eye and wonder, what are you talking about? That's another story for another day, but that's somebody told me Freemasonry has no color. And I was like, okay, so you must be blind, walking around in search of light. I'm just saying. But anyway, as we get into today's show, I'm definitely looking forward to having them come on, and we're gonna definitely get this thing popping. If you want to call in to the nice show, as always, you're welcome to do so. That number is 619-985-1184. You're certainly welcome to call into the show. And we're about to get this thing going. So he'll be calling in just a few minutes. And we're going to put him on. And we're going to have this discussion tonight. Ancient Masonry. What it is, what it's not. How did we get from point A to point B? This is a Prince Hall brother just bringing you some knowledge and enlightenment. Love to have him come on to the show. Brother Yohance will be here in just a few minutes. Greetings, Alex. What's going on with you? Everybody who's illuminated light. What's up with you, brother? I appreciate you. We're getting it all in tonight, so definitely looking forward to it. Oh, okay. And we definitely going to have this conversation with him tonight. He's going to be introducing himself. So with that being said, Yohance, go ahead, talk to me.
Hey, how you doing? How you doing?
I'm all right. I'm all right. First of all, I want to welcome you to the show. I want you to go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell everybody who you are, your Masonic affiliation, if you choose to. I've already told them you was Prince Hall, but you go ahead and break that down. You got the floor.
Yes, my name is Yohance Bediako. Uh, I was taught and trained by some of the leading African American scholars, Dr. Yosef Ben Yakinan, Dr. Clark, Dr. Jacob Carruthers, Dr. Ivan Van Sertima, and all of these guys. When I met at a very young age, 17 years old. And these guys basically shaped my awareness, my understanding. And when back in like 1980, Dr. Ben, who
Wait a minute. Time out. Time out. Time out.
Yes.
You mean Dr. Ben was initiated into Freemasonry?
Oh, most definitely. Yes.
Oh.
Dr. Ben is a Freemason. Yes. He was also initiated in the ancient system in Africa through the culture and the brothers of Nubia and Nile. Dr. Ben was born in Ethiopia. He's from Ethiopia. He's raised. He moved, and his family moved to Puerto Rico, and he was raised in Puerto Rico. He can speak and understand, I think, about like 16 different languages.
Wow.
He has like 6 engineering degrees. Yeah. He decided that he was going to start the ancient African system in the United States back in 1980. And he did. He started it, and they had their first initiation. And when those brothers, got together and they finished formulating the lodge and all of that, then they had their second initiation. And I and a group of my friends were part of that second group.
So I have a question for you.
Yes.
In saying that, was that lodge set up like today's Masonic lodge? Was it a little different since he had already been initiated into some of the ancient mysteries or ancient arts of or I don't even want to say Freemasonry, but whatever you want to call it. I don't have a word for it.
We're gonna call it Freemasonry for right now.
Okay. Okay.
We'll call it. So yes, it was set up. It was set up like a Masonic lodge that as we would be today, and it had slightly different things that they would do. And the way that he was planning it is he was going to take us through Freemasonry and then slowly evolve to the ancient system. But the way that they taught and trained was totally different.
So my next question is this teaching, is this structure still around today?
No, it did not last. It did not last because it required a lot of brothers' time. And one thing about us is we talk more than we ready to produce.
Okay.
And so when that effort to produce, I shouldn't say like it did get popular. It got popular because it grew because of Dr. Ben, and it grew through the Association of Classical African Civilization organization called ASCAT. And ASCAT became a major feeder to the organization as a result of Dr. Ben and Dr. Ben's work. But it did not last. It did not last very long. From what I understand, it lasted about 15 years.
Wow.
And so I was the second generation in that, and that was my introduction to Masonic teaching.
So now my question would be, is that the structure that you had before, and now that you're a Mason and you're introducing some of this concept, or maybe I don't know, what do your Masonic brothers think about that?
Which one? You talking about them, or you talking about now? Or you talking about Prince Hall?
I'm talking about Prince Hall now. I'm being honest. I'm talking about Prince Hall, man.
Okay. Well, let me say, that was back in, I was initiated back in 1980, and I stayed, it was in Harlem, New York, and I stayed there in Harlem, New York, working in the lodge and doing things in the community, because we were out in the community also. I'd stayed with them for about like 3-4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I transferred. I went to New Jersey Institute of Technology, and then I transferred to Tuskegee University. And then that took me away from that work for a while.
Okay.
And when I left Tuskegee, I went to Cincinnati, Ohio,
Mm-hmm.
and connected with a bunch of brothers that I met in Tuskegee. They were a little bit older than me.
Mm-hmm.
They had graduated from Tuskegee a few years before I did. And so I met back up with them, and they were doing a lot in the community. And I was, freshly out of school, so I was working a lot with them in the community. And they were Prince Hall Masons, but they were very much so what people would call, or what we would say, African-centered or Afrocentric.
Okay.
They were very much so like that. And they knew, because we were friends, so they knew about my initiation into this ancient African system with Dr. Ben. They knew about that. And so
that's got to be special.
They asked me to be a part of the lodge. And because I had no plans of being initiated into Freemasonry.
Uh-huh.
I had no plans of doing that. That wasn't on my radar at the time. But because my friends, I was so involved with them, and just hanging out and being involved with them, I said, okay, I'll go ahead, and it didn't faze me too much because my family was Prince Hall. My father was a Prince Hall Mason, and my uncle, who was a Prince Hall Mason, who was also involved in the UNIA with Marcus Garvey, he was also a Prince Hall Mason.
Wow, really?
So, yeah.
Oh, you got some serious bloodline going on there.
Yeah. He was pretty high up in UNIA with Marcus Garvey in Cincinnati area, my uncle. And so I went ahead and I got initiated past the raised in 1993 in Pride of the Valley, number 95, Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Ohio. And that's where I've been, since. And so, and I've been studying and involved with Freemasonry and Masonic ideas and information since then.
Well, I'm going to say this, and I want to say thank you because you introduced me to Brother Knight.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Good brother. That's my good friend.
Yes. Now, how do you say his first name? Fahim Knight. We was on the phone for at least an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And I listened to what he had to say, and I enjoyed the conversation tremendously. It was indeed an honor to speak to him, as though I had been reading some of his blogs all along. And he said that once he's done writing his books, that he would love to come on the show. So I have to be patient and wait till he's done. And I'm excited. I ain't gonna lie to you, I am, because he's a legend. I'm telling you, he's a legend. He don't even know it though.
Yeah. And another Prince Hall brother.
Oh yeah.
So there's a few of us like that. He's only one of my friends that I hang with that think like me. So there's a few of us. Like, as a matter of fact, some of what my stand comes from him. I didn't think about uniting Black, African American Masons until I sat with him. Because in my experience, when I got initiated to Prince Hall, they didn't tell me that there was other Black Masonic groups out there. I thought there was only Prince Hall.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know that there was others out there. I didn't realize there was others until I went back to Tuskegee for homecoming.
Right.
And this brother saw my Masonic ring, and he walked up and he greeted me and all of that, and we started talking, and he was John G. Jones, and I was like, who is that?
Right?
I was like, I said, not only do I not know about y'all, I don't know who John G. Jones is.
Right.
And so that then made me start doing research. And this is long before I met Brother Fahim Knight.
Okay. Okay.
Right. So that's when I first became aware that there was these other Masonic groups.
Right.
And so I started doing the research, and now this is very interesting. Right?
Hold on. Just a second before you go into that, I'm reading some of the stuff in the chat line. Some of these brothers saying the same thing that you said. One brother said, I was dumbfounded. One brother said, I found out much later that Prince Hall was not the only black masonry. Oh, wow. Oh, that's Brother Brandon Lewis saying that. Okay, go ahead. Continue, brother.
Well, remind me to get back to Prince Hall not doing black masonry. Remind me to get that, because that was somewhat my experience too.
Okay.
But the interesting thing was, now I was at Tuskegee. The two founders. Most people think Booker T. Washington founded Tuskegee. For the most part, when you look at what founders do and all that stuff, for the most part, he did. But he was not the person that got the school, that worked to get the school into existence.
Really?
He was the person that came and carried the school to become what it is.
Okay.
But he wasn't the person to get it existence. There was another very popular and a wealthy businessman in Tuskegee named Lewis Adams.
Mm-hmm.
Lewis Adams had a relationship with a politician, and the politician wanted him to help him get elected. And Lewis Adams told him that he would do it only if when he got elected, that he would give some money so they could start a school.
Wow. Now that's what you call negotiating.
Right. And the politician did. And when he got elected, he gave Lewis Adams and some businessmen $2,000 to start a school, which back then was a lot of money.
A lot of money.
Yes, that was a lot of money. And but the issue was, they didn't know what to do. So
okay.
He went back to the politician, was like, well, we need some help. And the politician called his friend, General Armstrong. General Armstrong founded Hampton.
Okay.
General Armstrong is a white general. He founded Hampton. And Booker T. Washington and General Armstrong, that was like one of his favorite students or whatever it was. And so General Armstrong sent Booker T. to Tuskegee. And when Booker T. got to Tuskegee, he talked to Lewis Adams. He was like, okay, where's the school? And Lewis Adams was like, this is all we got. And Tuskegee started in the basement of a popular church in Tuskegee called Butler Chapel.
Wow.
And that's where the school was when Booker T. Washington got there.
Okay.
And then Booker T. went to work. And
dang,
Tuskegee became what it is. Now, I say all that to say Booker T. and Lewis Adams were Prince Hall Masons.
Okay.
So now, me and Tuskegee, Booker T. is a Prince Hall Mason. Lewis Adams is a Prince Hall Mason. Even though there were John G. Jones Masons in Tuskegee, I never saw them fight. So even though now I know that there's other African American Masonic groups, I still don't know nothing about the fighting. Well, I did not know that it was this bitter battle until about 2-3 years ago, when I started. Someone invited me to a Masonic discussion group, and I was just floored. I was like, really?
Yes, like, really?
Y'all fighting like this? Really?
Right.
And I was so upset. At that time, I knew Brother Fahim Knight. At that time, I knew him. So I'm sitting with him. I'm like, did you know this was happening? And he's like, oh, yes. And I'm like, You
Oh,
know,
wow.
and he talks about the struggle he had in his lives because, you know, he's in Durham, and Durham has all that African American history to it. And he's in his lodge, and he's talking about how he says that he's considered to be the black sheep of his lodge because he's always talking about how we should unite.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, yeah, well, let's make that happen. Let's do that. Here I am thinking that all we have to do is just say some stuff that kind of makes sense. And we got our united African American Masonic group.
Right.
I was not ready for what my brother was going to say to me about it. Right? I was not ready.
Oh, man.
I was sitting there. I was like, really?
Mm-hmm.
You know. And so Brother Fahim is the one that got me, or you know, where I got the perspective of let's unite. You know, because and even then, and at the time, I didn't know how old John D. Jones was. You know, Brother Fahim told me, because his thing was like, you know, we fighting 100 and some odd year battle.
Yep.
He was like, ain't it time for us to stop?
Yep.
You know, and I was like, yeah. So, you know, and I was just gun ho, let's start. And it just didn't happen. You know.
Oh, man, look. You cannot turn the Titanic around on a dime. This is a gradual fight. And
this is a gradual,
yeah, this is a gradual thing.
Yeah, you know, so I talked to Brother Knight about it, you know, and we used to sit and have discussions, and I was like, you know, we have to be honest about our history. I said, we have to be honest, and we have to stop playing these mental and psychological games with ourselves about the condition and the situation of 1700s with black folks in America. You know?
Oh, you got an amen corner right here, and I'm quite sure you got an amen corner on this chat line too.
Yeah, I'm sitting up there like, really? Y'all really think that these European Americans in 1700 is going to do something that just open arms accept us? I was like, and the deal is, if we look at the history, right? We look at the history of our acceptance. It's always some pseudo little whack behind acceptance. You know, oh, we gonna jump for joy because England says we regular. Yeah, but they only say that shit don't. I'm sorry, I can't cut. They only say that stuff counts if European Americans say that we're regular.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm like, then we should have said, then you should have keep that. We don't need that.
Now look, brother Yohance. Now look, now you know you're gonna make some brothers kind of like unsettling when you saying that.
Yeah. You know, I mean, it was funny, right? Brother Fahim Knight, and when he saw my video, he was like, man, you get ready to get both of us kicked out of prison. I was like, oh my God. But, you know, that's the thing. That's the history, right? I have a video of Dr. Ben giving a lecture at a Prince Hall Lodge here in Atlanta.
Really?
You know, yes. It's on YouTube. You can pull it up.
You know what? I saw that at this lecture.
Yes.
He said, "Do you think that you really are something about European Masonry? Something about this recognition thing?" He went in pretty hard on it.
Yeah. And we brought him to Tuskegee, and he's at Tuskegee giving another lecture, and he goes in. You know, he goes really deep into Freemasonry at his lecture in Tuskegee.
Wow.
He's doing the same thing. So, you know, I'm sitting here, and I'm like, you know, we having these discussions, and I mean these discussions around subject matters that can easily be solved.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the only reason that it is not solved is because we're playing psychological games.
Right.
And we don't want to accept the reality.
And you know what else I think also? This is just my personal opinion. I don't think our leadership wanted to be resolved.
Right. That's the same. You know, me and John Hurston got into a big argument.
Oh,
on.
I'm listening.
Me and John Hurston got into this big argument on one of the Masonic groups on Facebook, and then he messaged me personally, right? To like almost continue the argument. I was like, bro, my opinion ain't changing because you messaged me personally, right? And this is before his book came out. And we had this big discussion, and he asked me, you know, we were talking about regular and irregular, Prince Hall being regular or irregular. And I was like, look, if we're going to go by the rules that Prince Hall go by, and these European American Masons go by, if we're going by those rules, then we have to accept the reality that Prince Hall is an irregular body.
Ooh, you said that publicly, right? Hold on, bro. You said that publicly on this forum. Now you know you're gonna get some kickback.
Oh yeah, it's going to be. But understand, I'm saying if we go by those rules.
I hear what you're saying, but other people don't necessarily hear what you're saying.
Right.
They're gonna hear that you said that Prince Hall was irregular. They ain't gonna hear the other part.
Right. They ain't gonna hear none of that.
They ain't gonna hear none of that. I'm just letting you know.
Right. Then he asked me, do I personally think Prince Hall is irregular? And I was like, no. No, I don't. And then he was like, so then he asked me, why? If I say the rules that we go by makes Prince Hall irregular, and he was like, so then why you don't think Prince Hall is irregular? He said in 1827, we declared ourselves independent from everybody.
Correct.
We decided and stood up and said we were sovereign and independent. I said, now we went downhill from then and didn't continue and didn't live up to that statement. I was like, but we said we were sovereign and independent. That day we became regular.
That's true.
And I was like, and we don't even celebrate that day. We don't acknowledge the day we stood up and said we were independent and sovereign.
Correct.
We don't even acknowledge it. And I said, that's why. When someone asks me, is Prince Hall regular? I say yes. And then they ask me why, that's what I tell them.
Wow.
I don't say nothing about that charter from England.
That is the answer to, like this brother just said. I like what he just said. Vincent said, the money is in the medication, not the cure. This is the same for us uniting. The power that be would rather for us to divide because of the financial impact it makes. That is so true.
Yeah.
I mean,
it can, and I don't, and maybe, and that could be true. I haven't delved into the rationale of why we can't unite. I was just still flabbergasted on the immaturity of not doing it. So I'm just like, don't you understand? I mean, and this is the deal, and then I guess we need to get into ancient African stuff too, but this is the deal. We need to ask ourselves, not one bit of new information came out about Prince Hall's history and its organization from 1778 to 1990. Not one bit of information, new information came out. Even up to this day, ain't no new information came out. Well, John Harrison changes the date by what, 3 years, 2 years? Like that really makes it different. But, you know, not one bit of information. So the question becomes, if not one bit of information came out, why did European Americans in England and Europe decide to recognize Prince Hall? What was the difference? The difference was, globally, African Americans and African people, the society was changing and had to start giving a level of respect to African American people. That's what was happening. And it would have looked totally ridiculous for these European Americans in Europe to not recognize this African American Masonic system that is as old as they are.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah, buddy.
And so they came out with a way to recognize Prince Hall. They came out with a way to recognize Prince Hall without really recognizing him.
And without looking bad. They said that if the state Grand Lodges would recognize you, so would they.
So will we. I'll be like, what is that? And then you have the state Grand Lodges in some states giving recognition but no visitation. Wait a minute. If you say being a regular Mason traveling is the benefit of being a regular Mason, and you recognize me, but then you say I can't visit, then I don't have the benefit of what being regular is.
Yeah.
So what is that recognition? That's some pseudo whack behind recognition. You black, we don't respect black folks, so we ain't gonna recognize you like that. You see what I'm saying? And you know, and slowly, you know, you got lodges that actually went all the way. Not only did they give recognition and you got intervisitation, you got dual membership.
Right.
You know, some do that, but this is over time. You know, and then obviously those 8 southern states that still don't recognize Prince Hall. So this is over time. My thing is just like, I don't care whether they recognize us or not.
Brother, you're blaspheming. You're blaspheming.
You know, hey, I'm sorry. I'm like Brother Fahim Knight. In 2010 was when North Carolina recognized Prince Hall. And he was talking about them being in the lodge and all this, and everybody getting all excited and had that celebration. He's like, I ain't going to that thing.
Wow.
And I'm like him. I'm like, I don't care. I'm not saying like, oh, no, you know, F them, you know, American, you know, European man. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that, look, first, it took you too long, you know, and 2, you need, just like the United States, owes black folks a very serious apology and rectification for their issues, so does European American Masonry owes African American Masons a very big apology. And some work to put in to rectify the issue. And so until I get that, I'm, you know, okay, you European American and I'm African American. You know, I had no problem not going to your lodge. You know,
that's
going reality.
That right there want to take me somewhere else. But before I do that, I want you to tell the audience in regards to this video that you put out, your ancient studies, what you have found in your ancient in your studies in regards to Freemasonry in the ancient arts.
Yeah, this is the issue. Because we are, and we need to recognize this, because we are victims of European supremacy, white supremacy, racism, all 3 of those are the same thing. Don't get it confused.
Okay.
So because because we are victims of that, in order for us to start understanding reality, we almost have to become PhD scholars. Because we got to go into studying so much. We got to understand the psychological damages that European supremacy has done. We have to go into studying the historical lies that European supremacy has done. We have to go into understanding the religious manipulation that European supremacy has done. So we have to do all of that, which is what I had been doing most of my life. So my thing is, so when I started to then become aware of who I am as an African American man, and my history, my heritage, and my legacy, it also gives you indirectly. It doesn't directly tell you that unless you're a Mason and you do the research, but indirectly it tells you the origin of Freemasonry.
It does.
See,
but
right.
When I tried to say that, people thought I was crazy.
Yeah, that's because they ain't studied nothing. That's why, the reality is ancient Kemet in its lifetime. See, when we say Rome, ancient Rome, the only reason the word ancient is in front of Rome is because we are now looking back in time and looking at Rome and saying Rome is ancient. But in ancient Kemet's existence, it was an ancient civilization. See, you could have been back in 1000 BC. In 1000 BC, Kemet had already been in existence for 3,000 years.
Whoa. That number alone shocks. That number alone would shock you.
Right, it's right. So, and it really was longer than that, and I'll explain why it was longer than that in a few minutes. But and so then, at the time of ancient Kemet's glory, it ruled the known world. And so you know that the Greek philosophers traveled to Egypt and learned, traveled to Kemet and learned at the foot of the priests and the scientists in Kemet.
So, hold on. I don't want to kill your thought, but a brother just posted he just posted 4,000 BC literally at the latest 4,241 BC. That's a long time ago.
That's a long time ago. Now check this out. Now I'm going to go into why it was even longer. 4,000 BC. 4,000 BC, we're looking at ancient Kemet having a calendar. We're looking at ancient Kemet having dealt with the Sphinx or what is Haru Am-Akhet.
Yes.
That's what the Sphinx is called. But so we're looking at those things. So in other words, we can date ancient Egypt back 4,000 BC and say at 4,000 BC, ancient Egyptians had a calendar.
Yeah, you can literally say that. That's a fact. Right. Everybody, that's a fact.
But the reality is, then when you understand the science of how a calendar comes into existence at the level of accuracy that was done in the Nile Valley, you have to have watched the stars for 24,000 years.
Whoa.
Which is a sun cycle in order for you to get an accurate calendar.
Somebody just put up the same thing you just said. The exact same thing when you were saying. They said 36,000 years according to the King's list, and you was right on target with that. Whoa, okay.
So, right. So in other words, they are dating things back when our ancestors did it. But in order to do it, you have to already be civilized. You can't get civilized and do it at the same time.
Whoa. Wait a minute. You need to repeat that. You need to repeat that.
You can't get civilized and do all of these things at the same time.
Well,
you have to have had and developed a culture, a process, a way of life that is already investigating and doing these things.
Mm.
You see what I'm saying? So the 4000 BC date, that's just dating artifacts.
Right.
That has nothing to do with the beginning of the Nile Valley civilization.
Dang.
You see what I'm saying? And so when we look at the Nile Valley being the source, the civilization at the time, and you understand that the Phoenicians learned, and I said this in my lecture, the Phoenicians learned from ancient Egypt, ancient Kemet, the Greeks learned from ancient Kemet, the Romans learned from ancient Kemet, you know, and then when Freemasonry starts to talk, right, and about who were the early Masons, and the early Masons, and we get to, the early Masons was the Phoenicians. Well, the Phoenicians learned from ancient Kemet. Therefore, ancient Kemet has to be the source.
Hey, I want you to,
learned from ancient Kemet. Therefore, ancient Kemet has to be the source.
So here's what I want you to do real quick. I know your lecture, the lecture you're talking about. I know it's on the YouTube. Would you please tell people where they can find this lecture at that you're giving right now? This lecture in its totality.
You can go to YouTube and type in Yohance ancient is Africa ancient Africa the source of Freemasonry. Yohance is ancient Africa the source of Freemasonry, and the video then will come up.
Okay. Okay. I definitely want you to get that information out because I've watched that lecture and I'm learning from what you're saying. Some of the stuff I've mentioned, but a lot of it I didn't know personally. You know.
See, is it you know, you call a coincidence? They both look to the east. You know, because looking to the east, facing the east, dealing with the east is a big thing in ancient Kemet. So that's a coincidence. And you say, okay, well, they look to the east, and they also had these signs that they would do. You know, you can say those are coincidences. But when you start listing the relationships between the dew gods, the design of the lodge, the concept of hewing and fashioning stones, and when you start getting into all of that, see, all of that can't be no coincidence. You see what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying. Preach.
And I'm like, and for me, for an African American Mason to say to another African American Mason that presents as much information that I did in my lecture, that there really ain't no source, there is really no evidence that Egypt is the source of Freemasonry. I'm like, you just conditioned, brother. Come on. Really?
Yeah, really.
We can sit up there. I can talk about, because I'm an architect by profession, right? So that makes me an operative and a speculative Mason.
All right.
So I can talk about the contributions to African Americans that were enslaved in building the capitals across the country. Right? I can talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody can be like, that's not true. Right? Obviously, there ain't going to be no direct document that says we did that. But when I start showing you the brother that designed Duke University, when I start showing you the work of the brother that designed that helped design the capital of
Washington
Alabama.
D.C.
Well, I was getting to that one.
Oh, okay.
Saving that one for last.
Okay, I jumped the gun. My apologies.
Right. So when I start brothers that are doing these things. You mean to tell me you're still going to say to me, well, there's no evidence that, African American slaves helped build these capital cities? Knowing good and well that in the time period that these cities were being built, slavery was very much so in full effect.
It was at its peak, baby. It was rolling.
At its peak.
It was definitely at its peak.
And so you mean to tell me you at least can't just say, Brother Yohance, that's interesting. You just gonna say no? There ain't no evidence? See, that's why. And what we're seeing and what we're experiencing is the result of us being a victim of European supremacy. One thing that racism has done, racism disrupted three things in our community. One, our connection and our respect for our elders and our ancestors. See, before the Martin Luther King Memorial, we were spending a whole bunch of money to go look at and give honor to European American ancestors. But we wouldn't even light a candle in our house for Big Mama who just passed away.
Well, hold on, time out. Look. That's another show, because some of us don't understand the ancestry connection when you light the candles, when you go into meditation.
Well, let me change it. All I'm saying is that we as a people, a group of African American people, we don't gather and honor our ancestors.
Correct.
And that is a result of our enslavement.
And I'm going to give you the answer to why we don't do it. This is my answer. The reason we don't do it is because we've been told that it was spooky to do that. We've been told that that's not how you're supposed to do it. So it is something that has been passed down.
Right.
And so when you do that, people say, oh, you voodoo, you into that voodoo stuff, you talking to your ancestors. I've never seen God a day in my life, but I pray a lot.
All the while they're spending money to walk into a big gigantic shrine to a European male ancestor that is sitting inside an African penis.
Yes.
So,
you're talking about Abraham Lincoln, right?
No, I'm talking about the Washington Monument.
Oh, okay. Oh, you're talking about,
Washington Monument. The Washington Monument is designed after an ancient Kemetic symbol they call it the obelisk.
Right.
The ancient Kemetic call it the Tekken.
Okay.
The Tekken is, I'm getting into it. I'm gonna go into the story real quick. The Tekken comes from the story of what Europeans call Osiris.
Okay.
People of Kemet called Asar. Asar, or Osiris, was killed by his brother Set. Right? Set cut him into 14 pieces. Right? Remember Jesus Christ was stabbed 14 times?
Yes. Yes.
Let me stop throwing that in. Was cut into 14 pieces. Osiris's wife, Isis,
yes,
or Set, as is called in Kemet, she searched the Nile Valley to find all of the pieces. And she found all of the pieces except for his penis, which the story says there's a few versions, but one of the versions says that his penis was in the Nile River and got eaten by a catfish. And so he didn't have his penis. So she made one for him.
Wow.
And that is what a Tekken or an obelisk is.
Wow.
And what that represents the rejuvenative power of the male.
The Lion's King.
Yes. You see?
Brother Brandon Lewis just posted that. He started laughing out loud. Go ahead. Teach on, brother.
You see what I'm saying? And so, and now I'm telling you, and I know for a fact, those Europeans know that story, right?
They know it.
That story, they know that story because that's the story of Hiram. They just changed it to Hiram. And they just changed a little bit of the story. The concept of the resurrected, the dying and being reborn and rising, right? We got it in our lives and all of that. Is, you know, King Solomon, King Hiram, Hiram Abiff, and all of that. There is no story like that in Hebrew history.
None at all.
None at all.
None at all.
So the question becomes, why did these European Christian males that organized Freemasonry, why did these European Christian males then decide to write an allegory with a concept that doesn't come from the group of people that they are writing the allegory about?
I wish I had something to go, yeah.
You know, where did that come from? What it came from is, now, in order for us to understand the development of anything in any society, it doesn't matter what it is. In order for you to understand the development of anything in any society, you have to see what the general society itself is doing. And that's going to inform you about the development of this little group or this organization inside that society.
Right.
So now understand, the third degree don't come until 1725. Right? And so then when you look at what was happening with European society at the time of the 1700s, they are submersed in the exploring of ancient Egypt.
Okay.
They are submersed in it. That's where you get Napoleon in Egypt shooting off of the nose of the Sphinx.
Because they couldn't stand it. They was like, that nose too big,
They
brother.
saw that black face, because at the time that he got there, wasn't nothing showing but the head. All of the whole Sphinx was buried under sand.
Yes.
The only thing that's showing is the head. And all he saw was this big black face.
He saw a big, beautiful black face and couldn't stand it.
Big, beautiful black face, and he didn't like it.
Didn't like it.
But this is what's happening. This is what's going on in Europe. And it is the story of a Tsar that inspired them to create the third degree.
Whoa. Whoa. I didn't see that one coming, but thank you.
Now, Dr. Ben explains a whole lot more than that, you know. But that's, and if you look at it isn't just Freemasonry, the Nile Valley being the source of Freemasonry. If you just look at secret societies and where they say they come from and all this kind of stuff, the common theme is going to be Egypt, right? The Rosicrucians, their whole thing is built around Egyptian society.
It is. I had the opportunity last year to go to the temple in the
temple in San Jose, California.
Yes. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Man.
It is
dude,
spectacular, man.
Dude, you talk. See, when I used to tell people, oh yeah, the 96 degree. There's no such thing as the 96 degree, brother Hawkins. You crazy. And when I got there, brother, and I started looking at people that don't look like me, 33rd 96, 33rd 300, I'm like, where's all this coming from? And then I started to read up what they had on the walls, brother. Let me tell you, we some special people and don't even know it. I know that because I've seen it for myself.
We really don't. In my lecture, just to let people people know it wasn't just the Nile Valley that was inspiring them, I also showed a symbol from the Congo.
Did you?
And yeah, it's at the end. It's the last one I showed in the lecture. Symbol that came from the Congo. The symbol is called the Kinga. The Kinga is a symbol that is showing the phases of the sun, and it has a circle around it, and these arrows make the circle, and the arrows is showing you the direction in which the sun is moving, and the thing is that they have the sun rising, and then going to its zenith, its peak, and then setting. But then they have it going into what ancient Kemet called the underworld, which is nothing more than the spirit realm.
Correct. Now, now, with that being said, could you please, as we go on, I want you to tell people where they can find your lecture at, because people are asking, where can they find this at? So you need to tell them once again, where can they find this lecture at?
Okay, once again, you can go to YouTube, and in the search browser in YouTube, type in my name, Yohance. Type in that, and is ancient Africa the source of Freemasonry? And the lecture will come up. You'll see the lecture come up.
We're gonna see, can we put that in the chat room, or we'll see, can I add it onto the show itself?
Right.
Brother Lewis, yes, that's his name. Yohance is his name. Yes, Brother Lewis, that is absolutely correct.
Yeah. You can, and see, and there's a lot of things that we have to understand. I say this in the lecture, and I say this because we somehow think that there's some kind of behavior that, I can do in the United States, and then I can go to India, and that behavior still works, and that it doesn't. So we need to understand that culture determines everything you do. Culture determines everything you do. How you eat, how you talk, how you write, how you worship your God, how you get married. It dictates everything. There is no such thing as a neutral behavior. There's just no such thing as that.
There's no such thing as neutral behavior. So with that being said, do you believe, based upon your research, based upon who we are as black people, period, brown-skinned people, period, bronze people, period, do you think that we have a different connection to this planet than anybody else?
Oh, of course. Of course. We set the tone. We set the tone for connecting to, I'm going to say, the cosmos, and in the cosmos we include the planet, the Earth. We set the tone for that for human life, right? We were here the longest. And just looking at it, there were 50,000 years of human existence that only African people were on the planet.
So tell me this here. With that being said, do you think that is the reason why we subliminally can change the tone? Because, I've seen us do some amazing things. And let me tell you, I'm going to point some things out. And I've said it before in a couple of videos. The way we dance, everybody else follows. The way we rap, everybody else follows. I'm including the mambo rap too. Even that type of rap. The way we take R&B, they follow. The way we take country, I mean, it just seems like when we do something, everybody else follows.
It's all of it. Our vibration and our connection to energy, which people call God. I'm calling it energy because it's easier for people to understand the concept than God. God is too vague. God is too vague. You know, nowadays, God is too vague.
Okay.
Because people be like, you know, oh, his God, my God. Well, what you're talking about is you're talking about energy. You're talking about energy. God, spirit, energy, same thing. Science uses energy. Science worships energy. And people worship God. It's the same thing. When you understand, you ask a religious person, well, what is God? They say, well, it's neither created nor destroyed, has existed throughout time, and is the causation of life. Then you go to a scientist, you say, well, what set everything? And you say, they're going to say energy. You say, what is energy? They're going to say, it's neither can created nor destroyed. It is in all things, and it sets the causation of life.
So tell me this. With that being said, somebody asked the question about the craft in a SAR. How does that correlate?
A SAR, all right. See, a SAR encompasses several different types of stories. All right. A SAR was the way the history says it, it was the king. A SAR was the king. And his brother Set was jealous of his power.
Sound like Cain and Abel.
Right. So there's different stories you're going to hear. And his brother Set was jealous of his power. And so he planned and connived to throw a party for him. This is how the story is told. Throw a party for him. And when Asar came to the party, Set and some other collaborators, where do we hear about other collaborators in an attempt to murder, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm pointing this out. So listen to the relations to Freemasonry, right? So we got the collaborators. And so what they did was Asar told him that he wanted to make sure that everything about his life is taken care of, even his death. So he said, so I want to build a coffin. I want to make sure this coffin is right for you. So if you lay in it and see if it fits.
Yeah.
And so Asar laid into the coffin, and the collaborators jumped on it, nailed the coffin shut, and
buried
threw
it.
Right. Well, they threw it in the Nile, and the coffin rolled down the Nile into an area called Babylon. And at the time, a plant and tree grew around the coffin. Guess what kind of tree it was?
Go ahead.
It was an acacia tree.
Is that why they say? Is that why they say the Masonic burial, just as a tree that is planted by? Let me see. Just as a tree that is planted by the water is soon cut down, would it not sprout again?
Look at you. Now, listen to the story. Right? So Asar in the coffin, and the tree grew around it, and so Asar is in the coffin, surrounded by the tree that grew around it. And the king of Babylon saw the tree and thought it was so wonderful, he cut it down and made a column. Made a column for his palace.
Wow. So look, one brother just posted, he just asked, are you still a Prince Hall Mason?
He asked me about what?
He asked if you were still a Prince Hall Mason. Brother says he's still in Prince Hall.
Well, let me say this. My dues ended in January, so I got to send in my dues for this year. Now, I don't know whether they get wind of what's going on, so we'll see.
Oh my God!
If they my case, baby, and give me my pass card. We'll see.
Oh
We'll
man, that
see.
brother says, is he still in Prince Hall? Oh man, that was.
We'll see.
Oh, go ahead, bro. I apologize, but I had to get that one in.
All right. And so when Offset found out that Set killed her husband, she went searching for him. This is the first search. She went searching for him, and she found out that that there was this column in the king of Babylon.
Right.
And so she went to him and asked for the column. And she's like, if you give me the column, I will make you a new one that is even more splendid than this one.
Okay.
And so he gave her the column, and there is a Kemetic symbol that is called the Tet or the Jed, and the Tet is a column, and that column represents the strength of Osiris.
Ooh. So is that the other column we sometimes look up?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm just asking. I wasn't for sure now.
All right. So she takes the tree, she takes the column back, and she brings Asar out, and he's lying on the table, and she's mourning him. Set finds out that she found the body.
Whoa.
That's when he goes and he sneaks and he steals the body and he cuts it into 14 pieces. Right?
Wow.
Right? And so she goes on the search again. See, this is who the Eastern Stars should be talking about instead of Ruth.
Oh.
They should be talking about Offset instead of Ruth.
Gotcha.
Right? So, so she finds the pieces again, and remember I said except for his penis, right? And she puts his body together with the help of Tahuti. Tahuti is divine wisdom. Solomon is what?
Wisdom.
Tahuti is divine wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so with the help of Tahuti, they attempt to revive his body. And so what happens is, now there's another version of this where I'm not quite sure of how true it is. But I'm going to tell you the true version, the one that I think is true.
Go ahead.
Then I'll go into the one that
you got my attention so deep. I decided to set up. Go ahead, break that down.
And so in the attempt to revive, Set sprouts wings and fans the breath of life into Asar. And with the help of Tahuti, they raise Asar from a dead level to an upright living perpendicular.
Ooh wee. Right? Is that what we see in Mars and Dogma when you see the lion raising?
Yes, Mars and Dogma. See, they show a lion. That's what I was gonna say. They show a lion's grip. I don't know about that. I haven't. In the story of Asar, I do not know him to be raised by a lion's grip. I don't.
I'm just because that's that that's
right.
in there. But go ahead. I'm listening. You got my attention. Go ahead.
And so Asar then becomes a living soul, but he's not among the living. He's still among the spirit world. And so Asar becomes the king and the ruler of the spirit world. And so what happens is Set sends her spirit to Asar. And Asar injects his sperm into the spirit.
Is that the Immaculate Conception with Jesus?
Yes, that spirit carries his sperm back to snatches his left eye out.
Uh-huh.
And at the end of the battle, Tahuti.
Oh, wait a minute, brother. Somebody posted they brain hurt. You giving out so much information. Everybody's my brain hurt.
I'm saying this is the stuff that Europeans were studying and reading in the 1700s and the 1800s.
So do you think this is one of the reasons they didn't want us to be Masons? Because they was looking at us?
That's a lot of reasons why they don't want us to be a whole bunch of stuff. We ain't need them anyway. We just didn't realize that. Right? So Set snatches Asar's left eye out. And even though Asar defeats him, and Asar becomes king now. Asar defeats him and Asar becomes king. And what Tahuti does with his divine wisdom is heal and create another left eye for Asar. For Heru. And that left eye is the Kemetic eye that everybody sees, the all-seeing eye.
So tell me this here, when you say that he put the left eye out, now as a noble of the Order of the Mystic Shrine, we're taught something about that eye. I'm just saying.
Okay. All right.
I don't know if you're a noble yet.
I'm not a noble yet.
But I'm gonna tell you.
I kind of have some mental issues with being a noble.
I'm gonna tell you this here.
One several times.
I'm gonna tell you this here as a noble. It's something special about that eye.
All right.
And we're gonna talk offline about that. How about that?
Okay.
Because
right.
I can say this publicly. There are 18 noble tasks that you must go through in order to become a noble. However, if you take in consideration what people have added to it, they take out the essence of what it is to be a noble man of noble birth. Okay, noble man of noble birth. So a lot of it has been, a lot of stuff that has been added into the Shriners order, not degree, order, is bullshit. Okay? If you look at if you look at a man that is becoming a noble of noble birth, and you understand what takes place in that process, a lot of the stuff that we do as nobles, we wouldn't do. Because I wouldn't be calling you no nasty noble. I wouldn't. Okay? But what happens is we take that. We take that and make it something playful. Oh yeah, I'm a nasty noble. This is not a Greek fraternity. I'm nowhere near nasty if I'm a nobleman. A noble man means somebody that is clean and upright. However, that's not what's being taught when you become a Shriner. And we'll talk about that offline, because a lot of people have that thing about, oh, I'm a nasty noble. I'm a noble man with a purpose. You know.
And that's the whole thing. What I was going to say earlier was that one of the things that we lost as a result of our confusion, from European supremacy, is how to connect common sense with practical information. You know, we just don't make those connections. We just don't connect the dots. So we say things that is extremely contradicting and not even realize it, and will fight somebody if they show us the contradiction.
Oh yeah, bro, be ready to be ready to put them up.
You know, like remember I told you that I put up the question, can a man be a slave master and an honorable Mason at the same time?
I seen that.
Right. Now, an overwhelming overwhelming majority of the African American Masons that responded said no. Right? You know, I can't even go into the kinds of excuses that the white Masons were saying. You know, that depends. And I was like, that depends. I was like, depends on what? But they never answered. You know, one Mason said that we can't intelligently talk about the morality or the immorality of slavery during that time because slavery does not exist today. We don't live in a slave society today.
Is that the mirror they want to show up? Is that the mirror they want to hold up to their face?
Right. So I said, okay, so you mean to tell me that we can't intelligently determine the immorality of Nazi Germany because ain't no concentration camp existing today? See, then you get silence. Right?
They did get silenced. They did.
Right. So now, the thing is this now. See, what I didn't have is all of the African Americans that said, and this is, and what I'm about to say is what sparked me to ask the question in the first place. If we could take all of the African Americans that was in that discussion that said, no, you cannot be a slave master and an honorable Mason at the same time, and then ask them to say truthfully what they think when you say George Washington.
Brother,
and I bet you none of them will have something negative to say about it. And all of them know he's a slave master.
Absolutely.
See, that's what I mean by the disconnecting, the inability to connect common sense with practical information. See, no African American, period, much less an African American Mason, should have any respect for George Washington. None.
But bro, you know they honor him. You know they do.
Yes. And I'm like, what? Get out of here. Like, okay, let me, just in case this is, and let me make this announcement.
Slaves honor your master.
Right. Let me make this announcement. I made this announcement last time that I was on your show talking, and I'm going to make this announcement again. So people could be very clear, particularly my Prince Hall brothers, be very clear. And let me make this statement, and if you put on your recorders, because I don't have a problem with y'all recording it, so everybody listening, put on your recorders, right? I will never, ever, 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 ever honor George Washington as my brother before John G. Jones. I will never do that. Never, ever, never. The members of John G. Jones is way more my brother than George Washington will ever be.
Well, you heard it here first. That's all I got to say. You heard it here first. This is live tonight. I have Brother Yohance on the line tonight, and he's giving his spiel about a lecture that he's done, and those are his words, and they can never be repudiated or laid aside.
I just want to be making sure that clear, because we be like, oh, you know, you're a regular brother, you know, it's not. I'm like, man, just because you a Prince Hall Mason, and I'm not going to determine that me and you are bros until I see how you act. Because when I was in Tuskegee, some of them Prince Hall Masons, please, them boys was acting buck wild.
Whoa.
And I was like, who in the hell raised y'all? You know, so, I mean, you know, regularity is not synonymous with good behavior.
Right. Somebody
Just
said
regular don't automatically make you a good person. It's supposed to, but it don't.
Somebody said you're gonna get put out tomorrow. I'm like, oh my God. They said you're gonna get put out tomorrow.
You know, and so, you know, I'm always saying that John D. Jones, International Free Modern.
Yeah.
We all need to sit down and solve our problems.
Brother.
You know, my brothers go berserk when I say that. What? You a regular Mason sitting with an irregular? That has never happened. I was like, bullshit. That happened in 1813. In 1813, the ancient Grand Lodge, which was irregular and clandestine as hell, got together with the Grand Lodge of England, which was the premier regular Grand Lodge in England, and they sat down and they solved their problem. England and ancient Grand Lodge was in a bitter argument, no different than Prince Hall and any other African-American Masonic group that ain't Prince Hall.
Look.
They got to say, they were calling each other names and everything. And since the Grand Lodge of England was the first, and it was there 30 years before the ancient Grand Lodge, they had already set the tone and the condition for being regular. And so if you're going to go and start another Grand Lodge in their territory, you are clandestine, period. And the Grand Lodge of England called them that. And so I'm like, they can sit down and solve their problem, so why can't we?
Because leadership don't want the problem solved. You're talking just like a doctor. You sound like a doctor who's in the hospital knowing that he has the cure to cure this person, but because this person has some great damn insurance, you think I want him to go right now? Or I need to keep him a couple more days before I give him this cure because I need to get paid.
Yeah, so I mean, and that's my thing. I'm like, well, let me see. I'm like, let me see, because no one, everyone says, Kemet is not the source of Freemasonry, but no one has lined up and looked at the so-called coincidences.
What if they have? Hold on. What if they've done that and then still, because they don't want anybody else to know?
Yeah, see, that's not honoring me.
Well, I'm just saying.
That's not being a Mason to me.
Well, maybe not to you. This is why some of this shit, excuse my language, this is why some of this stuff is considered a secret. Because maybe not to you, but for those who have set standards and said this, this, and this, and if you don't abide by this, this, and this, you're not it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you may, they know.
See, that's the thing why I talk about behavior. Behavior is just as valid a means to come to a conclusion about reality. Behavior is just as valid a means to come to the conclusion about reality. So in my lecture, I showed 4 lodges, different parts of the world, decorated like ancient Egypt. Dublin.
Oh, you know what? Is that Liverpool, the same one you posted in the group?
Yes.
I seen that. I seen that.
Dublin. No. I see you realize those lodges, those were 3 different ones than what I put in my lecture.
Really?
And I did that because the person that I was engaging with, he saw my lecture and he was trying to act like, this was just some thing that this was a art. Now I'm an architect now, so I know architectural movements and design movements. And one was called Art Deco, and it was back in like the 1920s, the 1930s. And inside the Art Deco movement was an Egyptian style, and they were trying to say that that's why these lodges was decorated like that. I said all over the world. I know what Art Deco was, and that mainly was a Europe and the United States thing. I showed, so when he said that, that's when I put up a lodge in Australia, one in Utah, and I'm like, look, this is all over the world. I could have put up London, England. I could have put up Columbia, South Carolina. I just didn't want to make my lecture that long showing all of that. But I'm like, all of these, it's okay. There is no lodge in the world another culture outside of Europe except Egyptian.
That's it.
Why is that?
That's
Why
it.
is that?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So we're looking now. I probably wouldn't have said anything if it was all of the lodges were in the United States. I wouldn't have used that. I wouldn't have said that. You know, I probably wouldn't. I might not even said anything if all of the lodges was in the United States and Europe. But this is everywhere that Masonry is. You can possibly find a lodge that has a decoration of ancient Egypt.
Yep. Yep.
And my thing is like, that ain't no coincidence. That ain't following no daggone design style. That's a damn statement. That is a statement. That is why the Grand Lodge, the Scottish Rite Grand Lodge in D.C. got two sphinxes in front of their entrance.
They sure do. And you know, when you walk inside, it's like, wow.
Right. And then they got a replica. It's a black statue that's kneeling. There's like sitting down with their knees up. Is a black statue. It is a replica of an Egyptian statue.
It is.
You know, that they got and the one that I showed in my lecture, I showed the Scottish Rite Grand Lodge in Alabama that looks like the front of an Egyptian temple.
Yep.
I'm like, how you gonna call yourself Scottish Rite and then be looking like some Egyptian temple? You're telling me something. And see, this is behavior. This is behavior. So now when you look at the behavior and then you look at the correlations of the symbol, right? You can ask someone that's not even a Mason and say, what are name three Masonic symbols, the most popular three Masonic symbols you know, right? The only one that won't date back to ancient Kemet is the compass. But we take the square, the level, and the plumb. And this is in my lecture. I show the ancient square, level, and plumb that came out of the temple long before Europe was writing.
Ooh. Ooh, you show that in there.
I show it. They're in the museum they're in the British Museum. You can go and look at them. Three of the most popular symbols of Freemasonry. No, I didn't show, well, I did show the setting ball. I showed the setting ball too, right? I showed the 24-inch gauge. I showed they had a 24-inch gauge.
Wow.
I'm like, where's China's 24-inch gauge that where you can trace Freemasonry possibly to China? Where is ancient Mesopotamia or ancient Sumer 24-inch gauge where you could possibly trace it back to them?
Wow. Well, I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this to everybody who's on right now. Just want to send you, each of you, brothers and sisters of the order, brothers of the craft, I just want to say thank you for tuning in tonight. Please hit the like button. And if you want to check this brother lecture out, you could definitely go to YouTube and put in his name, Yohance, and it would definitely come up. Right now, I'm not able to put a link to his YouTube lecture, but I would definitely be doing that in the near future. So please check it out. And I'm going to allow him one more time to tell you exactly where you can find it at and have him to spell it out for you. So if you want to go check out his YouTube channel where his videos are at, you can certainly do it. Go ahead, brother Yohance.
Yeah, it's YOHANCE. You know, so you type that in and then you type is ancient Africa the source of Freemasonry, and the video will come up.
Okay, so
you type that in the YouTube channel browser. You type that in the YouTube channel.
So
browser.
You need to go to the YouTube browser and put in Yohance, ancient. Would you say ancient Africa or ancient Masonry?
Ancient Africa.
Ancient Africa.
Ancient Africa is the source of Freemasonry.
Is ancient Africa the source of Freemasonry? Put that in, and it should come up. Like I said, what is Yohance's full name? Nope, you don't have to put his full name in. Just put in Yohance.
I mean, you can put the full name. I think it'll work too. So the full name is Yohance. Well, and the way you say my name is Yohance. You say it like that's my name is Hausa from Africa. You say it like German. Yohance, that's German.
Okay, go ahead. You pronounce your name correctly. Go ahead.
Yohance. 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 Bediako. Bediako. And it'll still come up.
Okay. I'm nowhere where I can actually put that in on the site right now, but definitely we're gonna make sure that we get it up for you, so people can go and check that out, because you have dropped some gems, some stones, some bricks. You have dropped it all tonight.
You think that lecture was wait till my next lecture. I'm just gonna give you the title. My next lecture is gonna be, is there color in Freemasonry?
Oh, you know what? I heard that tonight, right?
Oh yeah.
I heard in the group chat. Let me tell you.
Oh wow.
So in the group chat, on irregular versus regular, I don't mind saying where I seen that at. A brother who's black, and now he's part of mainstream Grand Lodge, said that there is no color in Freemasonry. That's what he said.
Right.
Now, this particular brother, I'm not going to call his name out. He was once a member of International. He left International and he went and joined the mainstream Grand Lodge. And I hope that he's happy where he's at, but he says he sees no color in Masonry. Now, I don't know who he's lying to, but, that's how he feels. That's how he feels.
Well, I'm gonna show. And obviously, you see how I roll when I do my lectures. So I'm going to show how Masonry has always had color in it.
Always
had color in it, and I'm going to show how. But again, we just need to connect the dots. Prince Hall exists. The only reason Prince Hall exists is due to color issues in Freemasonry. That's the only reason Prince Hall exists. The reality is the founding 15 never intended to create Prince Hall affiliation. That was not what they were doing.
You know what?
They wanted to be.
Hold that. That's gonna have to be for another show.
Yeah, that is.
And let me tell you the reason why. What's the day? Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I'm going to be in Chicago this weekend coming up. But that right there, what you was just about to go into, that's got to be for another show, brother. I got to have you to come back for another show on that subject alone, because we could be on here for another hour and a half. And right now we've been on here for for about an hour and 30 minutes or so. So I want to go ahead and close out. But, before I do that, I want you to go ahead and one more time, plug that video in, tell them where they can find it and who you are.
Right. You can go into YouTube and type in Yohance, Yohance, Bediako, Bediako, and is ancient Africa the source of Freemasonry? And my video will come up. You have to type that in the browser in YouTube. When you go to YouTube and type it into the YouTube browser. So again, my name is Yohance Bediako. I've been dealing with Masonic teachings and science since I was 18 years old. My background is studying under Dr. Yosef Ben Yakanan, Dr. John Henry Clark, Dr. Ivan Van Sertima, Jacob Carruthers. These are the people that I was exposed to at a very young age, and I became a part of a ancient African Masonic system under Dr. Ben. And then after I finished school at Tuskegee University, I was initiated, passed, and raised in Pride of the Valley number 95, Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Ohio.
Well, I certainly appreciate you coming on, and to drop a dime like Dr. Ben being a Mason, I'm like at a wow moment,
yes,
you know?
He definitely was.
That is definitely a wow moment.
Without a shadow of a doubt. He definitely was.
So with that being said, I want to thank you once again for coming on the show, and for everybody who's tuning in right now, please hit the thumbs up button. While I'm still online, you can give your lodge, your chapter a shout out, because that's how we do it here on this particular show. We want everybody to have a seat at the table. This is just not where you can come, where I can come in and just, no, this is for everybody. This show is really open. If you're not a Mason, if you're not an Eastern Star, you can come on and you can ask questions, as long as you're not trying to troll and tear down and beat up anybody. You're certainly welcome to come on. We don't mind having that conversation. And if John Hanson is listening to the show tonight, and if he ever want to come back on without either one of us screaming and going at each other, I would love to have John to come back on the show. Period. That's my invitation to him, where we can have a decently and orderly conversation without a lot of screaming about who's right, who's wrong. And this is what we're trying to have, is a decent dialogue amongst brothers. Period. So with that being said, Brother Yohance, what do you got to say before we log off?
Well, first I want to say, some advice to my brothers that are not Prince Hall. Stop arguing with my brothers about regularity and stop. Don't do that, because I think y'all have much better use of your time than that. Defend yourself, but don't get pulled into that argument. Don't get pulled in that argument. I think that time is done. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught a very good lesson that I like and that I use. And he says the people will be drinking from a dirty glass. And he's like, you don't have to tell them that they're drinking from that dirty glass. Just stand next to them and drink from a clean one.
Ooh. I like that.
You see what I'm saying?
I like that.
So I'm saying to y'all, stop arguing. Just stand next to them and be upright Masons.
Yeah. I appreciate that.
You know what I'm saying?
I appreciate that.
And I would like to come on just my personal kind of discussion and have a discussion about Minister Farrakhan being a Mason.
Oh, you know what?
I don't think,
brother.
I don't think you know the real significant impact of it.
Here's what I'll do for you. Here, now check this out. I'm finna share some information with you. You're hearing it here first. Sunday is Savior's Day, am I right?
Right.
I'll tell you what I'm gonna do for you. Sunday, I'm gonna come on live at Savior's Day in Detroit, if all goes well, and we can have that conversation. How about that?
Yeah, that'll be good.
Yeah. So once again,
when I saw it, I was like, wow. I was like, oh my God. I was like, this here? Woo.
Oh my
God, boy, you got me, you got me, you got me. But I'm telling you, Sunday I'm supposed to be in Detroit. If all goes well, we can have that conversation about that very topic.
Yeah.
All right?
Good.
And you could be the special guest once again, and we can dive right into it.
Right.
So with that being said, I want to say thank you to everybody coming on tonight. Whatever you do, always keep your light on and stay out the bushes. Brother Yohance, Yohance, I want to say it correctly, but I apologize. Stay on the line. We'll talk after I log off. And peace to everybody.